The vast emptiness of space hid many dangers, but none as deadly as the Ravagers. For thousands of years, they had traveled from one solar system to another, consuming everything in their path. Countless civilizations had fallen before them. There remained nothing more than footnotes in the Ravagers' long history of conquest. Now their hungry eyes turned toward a small blue planet called Earth. Captain Drake Miller stared at the monitor in the Earth Defense Force headquarters. The strange energy readings at the edge of the solar system had appeared 3 days ago. At first, everyone thought it might be a new cosmic phenomenon worth studying. Now, Miller wasn't so sure. "Sir, the signature has changed again," said Lieutenant Adams, her face pale in the blue glow of the screen. "It's splitting into smaller patterns, and they're moving toward Earth." Miller leaned forward, his weathered face tightening with concern. "How fast?" "Faster than anything we've ever tracked, sir. Whatever they are, they'll reach our atmosphere in less than 2 days." In a research facility halfway across the world, Dr. Anna Ward peered through her microscope, her red hair falling around her face as she adjusted the focus. What she saw made her breath catch in her throat. "Marcus," she called to her colleague. "You need to see this." Dr. Marcus Bell hurried over, his tall frame casting a shadow over her workstation. "What is it?" "These organisms weren't here yesterday. They're not matching anything in our database, and they're multiplying at an impossible rate." Anna moved aside to let Marcus look through the microscope. Marcus's eyes widened. "These aren't from Earth," he whispered. "We need to alert the authorities immediately." But it was already too late. High above Earth, the first wave of Ravager scout ships entered the atmosphere, invisible to human radar. Supreme Hunter Grell stood on the command deck of the main vessel, his scaled skin glistening under the ship's lights. 6 sharp claws extended from each of his 4 limbs, and his mouth was filled with rows of needle-like teeth. "Begin the hunt," Grell ordered, his voice a deep rumble that vibrated through the ship. "Send the first hunting parties to isolated areas. We will test their defenses before the main feast begins." The Ravagers had conquered worlds far more advanced than Earth. To them, humans were just another form of prey. Soft, weak creatures that would fall easily. They had no idea what awaited them. The first attacks happened in remote places, a small fishing village in Alaska, a research station in Antarctica, a mining community in the Australian outback. No survivors were left to tell what happened, just empty buildings and strange marks on the ground. Miller sat in the emergency meeting with world leaders, his uniform crisp despite his lack of sleep. "We've lost contact with 17 different locations in the past 24 hours, he reported. "Whatever these things are, they're testing us, looking for weaknesses." "Do we have any images of them?" asked the U.S. President. Miller nodded grimly and pulled up a blurry video on the main screen. "This is from a security camera in the Alaskan village before all communications went down." The video showed shadows moving with impossible speed, tearing through buildings as if they were made of paper. The glimpses of the creatures were brief but terrifying. Tall, muscular forms with too many limbs moving with deadly precision. "My God," someone whispered. "We're dealing with a coordinated attack from an unknown species," Miller continued. "And based on their pattern of movement, they're hurting us." "Hurting us?" asked the British Prime Minister. "What do you mean?" "Like cattle," Miller said grimly. "Or like prey." In her lab, Anna worked frantically to understand the alien microorganisms that now filled Earth's atmosphere. They seemed to be collecting data, transmitting it somewhere beyond Earth. "They're scouts," she told Marcus as they examined the results of their latest tests. "These microscopic things are studying us, our biology, our weaknesses." Marcus looked up from his computer, his face drained of color. "Anna, I think I know what's happening. These patterns match old legends from various cultures, stories about hunters from the stars who come to feast on worlds." "That's just mythology," Anna said, though uncertainty crept into her voice. "What if it's not?" Marcus turned his computer screen toward her. Look at these cave paintings from 6 different continents, all thousands of years apart. They show the same thing. Tall hunters taking human prey, and all the paintings show the same strange markings in the sky that we're detecting now. Before Anna could respond, all the lights in the lab went out. The emergency power kicked in seconds later, bathing everything in red light. "What's happening?" Anna asked, moving closer to Marcus. The answer came as every screen in the lab suddenly turned on by itself, showing the same message across all of them. "Prepare for harvest." Outside, the sky darkened as massive ships broke through the cloud cover, their hulls reflecting the sunlight like polished obsidian. They were enormous, each one the size of a small city, and they moved with silent precision as they positioned themselves over major population centers around the world. Communications worldwide began to fail. Internet connections dropped. Phone signals died. Television broadcasts cut out. Humanity was being isolated, cut off from itself. In a small town in the Midwest, people gathered in the streets, looking up at the strange ship hovering above them. No one knew what to do. Some prayed. Others tried to flee. But where could they go when the sky itself was filled with threat? A farmer named John looked up at the ship, his weathered hand shielding his eyes from the sun. "What do they want?" He asked no one in particular. As if in answer, the bottom of the ship opened, and dark shapes began to descend toward the town. The first Ravager hunting party had arrived on Earth. In their command ship, Grell received the initial reports with satisfaction. The prey on this world was plentiful and seemingly helpless. The feast would be bountiful. "Supreme Hunter," said his second-in-command, "the atmospheric processors are in place. Soon the air will be adjusted to our preference." Grell nodded, his vertical pupils dilating with anticipation. "Begin building the processing facilities in the area these humans call the Rockies. It's remote enough for our work to proceed undisturbed." Little did the Ravagers know that humanity had faced threats before, not from the stars, perhaps, but threats nonetheless. And through every challenge, humans had shown one quality above all others. They refused to go quietly into the night. As Miller gathered his forces and scientists like Anna and Marcus raced to understand the enemy, the battle for Earth was just beginning. The Ravagers thought they had found their next feast. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Rocky Mountains stood silent and majestic as they had for millions of years. But now, hidden among their peaks, something alien grew. The Ravagers had chosen this remote location for their main processing facility, a massive structure that rose like a dark tumor from the mountainside. Black spires reached toward the sky, and strange lights pulsed from within. Supreme Hunter Grell walked through the nearly completed facility, his clawed feet clicking against the metal floor. Around him, lesser Ravagers worked tirelessly, setting up machines designed to process human bodies into food and resources. "The construction proceeds well," said his Lieutenant Vor. "We will be ready for full harvest within 2 days." Grell made a sound that might have been a laugh. "The prey on this world is so easy. They hide in their dwellings, waiting for us to come. I expected more of a challenge." "There are reports of some resistance in the larger settlements," Vor noted. "Some of the prey have weapons. Primitive tools." Grell dismissed with a wave of his clawed hand. "They merely make the hunt more interesting." 20 miles away, Marine Sergeant Tom Jackson and his 5-person squad moved carefully through the forest. They had been on a training exercise when the invasion began, and their base had gone silent shortly after. Now they were trying to figure out what was happening. "Satellite phones still down?" Jackson asked. Private Cooper nodded, her face grim. "Yes, sir. No communications at all." "Those ships are still up there," said Corporal Martinez, looking at the sky through a gap in the trees. "But I haven't seen any more come down in the last few hours." Jackson, a veteran of 3 tours in combat zones, felt something he rarely experienced: genuine fear, but he pushed it down. His squad needed him to be strong. "We keep moving northwest," he decided. There's a ranger station about 10 miles from here. Maybe someone there knows what's going on. What they didn't know was that they were heading straight toward a Ravager hunting party. The aliens moved through the forest with practiced skill. They were hunters by nature, predators who had evolved to track and kill. Their leader, a Ravager named Kreth, stopped suddenly, lifting his head to scent the air. "Prey," he hissed to his 4 companions. Moving this way, the Ravagers spread out, preparing an ambush. They had done this countless times on countless worlds. It was always the same: quick, efficient killing followed by bringing the bodies back for processing. They expected nothing different here. Jackson felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Something wasn't right. The forest had gone too quiet. "Weapons ready," he whispered to his squad. "Something's." The first Ravager leaped from behind a large tree, moving faster than any human could. But Jackson had spent years honing his instincts in danger zones. He fired 3 shots before the creature reached him. The bullets hit the Ravager in the chest. It staggered, green fluid leaking from the wounds. It looked down in what could only be described as shock before collapsing to the ground. The forest erupted into chaos. Ravagers attacked from all sides, their claws slashing through the air. The Marines fought back with everything they had. Private Cooper emptied her rifle into an approaching Ravager. It fell just feet away from her. Corporal Martinez wasn't as lucky. A Ravager's claws ripped through his armor, and he went down with a cry of pain. "Fall back," Jackson shouted, firing as he moved. Defensive position by the rocks. The squad retreated to a cluster of large boulders, using them as cover. 3 of the 5 Ravagers were down, but the remaining 2 were pressing the attack, moving with unnatural speed. Jackson grabbed a grenade from his belt. "Cooper, when I throw this, you and Singh run left. Jones, you go right with Martinez. I'll cover." He pulled the pin and threw. The explosion echoed through the forest. Using the distraction, the Marines split as planned. Jackson caught a glimpse of one Ravager pursuing Cooper and Singh. He aimed carefully and put 2 bullets into the back of its head. The creature fell mid-leap. The last Ravager, Kreth, realized it was alone. For the first time in its life, it felt something new: uncertainty. These prey fought back with unexpected skill. It decided to retreat and report to Grell. But as it turned to run, Jones appeared from behind a tree and emptied his rifle into the creature. The Ravager fell, twitching, to the forest floor. For a moment, everything was quiet except for the heavy breathing of the Marines. "Did we get them all?" Singh asked, her voice shaking slightly. Jackson nodded, approaching one of the fallen creatures cautiously. "Yeah, but Martinez needs medical attention now." As they treated their wounded comrade, they examined the aliens they had killed. Nothing about them seemed familiar. Not their tough, scaled skin, not their multiple rows of teeth, not the strange devices they carried. "What are these things?" Cooper asked, nudging one with her boot. "I don't know," Jackson replied. "But they bleed. And if they bleed, we can kill them." What the Marines didn't realize was that a small device on each Ravager was still transmitting. Back at the processing facility, Grell received the signal with disbelief. A hunting party, destroyed. He growled, "Impossible." Vor checked the data again. "The signals are clear, Supreme Hunter. All 5 hunters in the party have fallen." Grell slammed his clawed fist into a nearby console, denting the metal. "No prey species has ever killed one of us. Find who did this and bring them to me." Within hours, a larger Ravager force surrounded Jackson and his squad. Despite fighting bravely, the humans were eventually captured, their weapons confiscated. They were brought to the processing facility, where Grell waited. Unlike other captured humans who were sent directly to processing, these 5 were taken to a special holding cell. Grell approached the transparent barrier separating him from the humans. He studied them with his large vertical pupil eyes. "You killed my hunters," he said, his voice translated through a device around his neck. No prey has ever done that before. Jackson stared back defiantly. We're not prey. Grell made that strange laughing sound again. Everything is prey to the Ravagers. But you are different. I want to understand why before you are consumed. Meanwhile, back at her lab, Dr. Anna Ward made a crucial discovery. The alien microorganisms had a unique chemical signature, one that seemed to respond to specific pheromones. Marcus, she called excitedly. I think I've found something. Dr. Bell hurried over, looking at her findings. A communication system based on chemical signals. Anna nodded vigorously. Yes, these creatures don't just use sound or light to communicate. They use scent, complex chemical compounds that carry information. Which means, Marcus said, his eyes widening with realization, we might be able to disrupt their communication. As they worked on developing a compound that could interfere with the Ravagers' chemical language, Captain Miller was organizing what remained of Earth's military forces into a resistance. And in the Ravager facility, Jackson and his squad were learning everything they could about their captors, determined to find a weakness. The predators thought humans were easy prey, but they were about to learn that on Earth, the line between predator and prey wasn't so clear. Captain Drake Miller stood before a wall of screens in the makeshift command center. It had been 2 weeks since the Ravagers arrived. 2 weeks of fighting, hiding, and desperate planning. The room was filled with military leaders from around the world, all connected through secure channels that the Earth Defense Force had managed to keep working. They've established control centers on every continent, Miller said, pointing to red dots on the global map. But they're not just destroying everything. They're setting up processing facilities. They're farming us. Like cattle, said the Russian general, his face grim on one of the screens. Exactly, Miller agreed. But that's also their weakness. They want to harvest us, not wipe us out completely. That gives us time. A British admiral spoke up. We've had some success with conventional weapons. They can be killed. Miller nodded. Yes, but at a high cost. We need to be smarter than that. We need to understand what we're fighting. He brought up new images on the main screen. Close-up shots of Ravager technology and biology taken by brave scouts and surviving scientific teams. They communicate using chemical signals, pheromones, as well as sound. They have a hierarchical structure, with the larger ones giving orders to the smaller ones, and they all seem to report to regional commanders. Like a hive, suggested another officer. Similar, but not exactly, Miller replied. There's individual thought, but also a strong collective component. And we've noticed something else. They're struggling to predict our movements. In the Ravager processing facility in the Rockies, Supreme Hunter Grell watched with fascination as the human called Jackson exercised in his cell. Despite being captured, the human maintained a routine, keeping his body strong. Why do you do this? Grell asked through the translator. You will be consumed regardless. Jackson didn't stop his push-ups. Because as long as I'm breathing, I'm fighting. This concept puzzled Grell. In all his centuries of hunting across the stars, he had never encountered prey that refused to accept its fate. Most species, once captured, surrendered to despair. Your kind is strange, Grell observed. You fight even when there is no hope of victory. Jackson finally stood, facing the alien predator. That's where you're wrong. There's always hope. And right now, my people are figuring out how to destroy you. Grell made that strange laughing sound. Many have tried. All have failed. You've never met humans before, Jackson replied with a cold smile. In her underground lab, Dr. Anna Ward carefully mixed chemicals, her hands steady despite her exhaustion. Beside her, Dr. Marcus Bell monitored the reaction on a computer screen. The compound is stable, he reported. But will it work? Anna nodded, carefully sealing the mixture in a container. The tests on the captured Ravager tissue samples show it disrupts their ability to process pheromone signals. It won't kill them, but it will confuse them, make it harder for them to coordinate. How do we deploy it? Marcus asked. That's the hard part, Anna admitted. It needs to be released inside their command structures. Someone has to get inside. At that moment, Captain Miller entered the lab with a team of Special Forces soldiers. Dr. Ward, Dr. Bell, he greeted them. I hear you've developed something that might give us an edge. Anna explained the compound and its effects. Miller listened carefully, then nodded. We've received intelligence about the facility where they're holding Sergeant Jackson and his squad, he said. We're planning a rescue mission. If we can get your compound into that facility, it could disrupt their entire regional command. It's extremely risky, Marcus warned. The facility will be heavily guarded. Miller's face hardened. Everything is risky now. But we need Jackson. He spent more time observing these creatures up close than anyone else. And if we can deploy your compound at the same time, we might just turn the tide. The plan took shape quickly. A small team would infiltrate the Ravager facility, rescue Jackson and his squad, and plant Anna's compound in the ventilation system. As preparations continued, Grell was reporting his findings to the Ravager Hivemind. A collective consciousness formed by the eldest and most powerful Ravagers, who remained on their homeworld. These humans are unlike any prey we have encountered. Grell communicated through a special device that transmitted his thoughts across space. They continue to resist despite overwhelming odds. They adapt quickly to our tactics, and their social structure is unusual. Explain, came the cold, collective voice of the Hivemind. They are individualistic, yet they coordinate effectively. Each seems capable of independent decision-making, yet they form cohesive groups. It makes their behavior difficult to predict. The Hivemind was silent for a moment, processing this information. This is concerning but not alarming. All prey eventually falls. Continue the harvest. But Grell wasn't so certain anymore. Something about these humans troubled him. They didn't behave like prey should. His thoughts were interrupted by an alarm. The facility's outer defenses had been breached. Miller's strike team moved with precision through the Ravager facility. They had studied the layouts provided by reconnaissance drones, and they knew exactly where to go. They wore special suits designed to mask their scent, making them harder for the Ravagers to detect. The team split into two groups, one headed for the detention area, the other for the ventilation control room. Jackson looked up as the lights in the corridor outside his cell flickered. Something was happening. He signaled to the rest of his squad, who immediately moved into positions they had practiced many times during their captivity. When the door to their cell block suddenly opened, they were ready. 3 Ravager guards rushed in, only to be met by organized resistance as the Marines used improvised weapons crafted from items in their cells. In the confusion, Miller's team arrived, quickly eliminating the remaining guards and freeing Jackson and his squad. Captain Miller, Jackson greeted with a grim smile. Took you long enough. Miller handed him a weapon. Had to wait for the right moment, Sergeant. Now let's move. We've got 5 minutes before this place is swarming with hostiles. Meanwhile, the second team reached the ventilation control room. They quickly overpowered the single Ravager technician and began installing Anna's compound into the air system. Dispersion in 30 seconds, reported the team leader over the radio. As they regrouped and fought their way back to the extraction point, the compound began to spread throughout the facility. The effect was almost immediate. Ravagers began to move erratically, unable to coordinate with each other. Some seemed confused, turning on their own kind in the chaos. Grell felt it too, a sudden inability to sense the chemical signals that helped him command his forces. It was like losing a sense he had relied on his entire life. For the first time, he felt fear. The human rescue team escaped with Jackson and his squad, leaving behind a facility in chaos. As they boarded the stealth helicopters waiting to extract them, Jackson looked back at the Ravager structure. They're not invincible, he said quietly. Miller nodded. No, they're not. And now we know a lot more about them, thanks to you. They have a collective mind, Jackson explained as the helicopter lifted off. not completely like a hive. Each has individual thoughts, but they're connected somehow. And that connection is what makes them strong. And what makes us strong? Miller asked. Jackson thought for a moment. Our unpredictability. Our individuality. The very thing they can't understand about us. As Dr. Ward's compound continued to spread through the Ravager command structure, disrupting their ability to coordinate, humanity began to fight back with renewed hope. The predators from the stars were learning a harsh lesson. On Earth, humans were apex predators too, and they would not go quietly into the night. The battle for Earth was far from over, but for the first time since the invasion began, humans had reason to believe they might win. The rescue mission had not been without cost. Of the 12 soldiers in Miller's strike team, only 7 made it back alive. They were given a hero's welcome at the underground base, but there was little time for celebration. The war against the Ravagers was entering a new phase. Sergeant Tom Jackson sat in the briefing room, still wearing the same clothes he had been given in captivity. His face was thinner, his eyes harder, but his spirit remained unbroken. "Tell us everything you learned," Miller said. "Every detail matters." Jackson nodded, gathering his thoughts. "They're organized like an army, but they think like a single organism. The big one, Grell, he's in charge of this region, but he answers to something they call the Hivemind." He described the Ravagers' facility in detail, their technology, their weapons, their strange biology. Most importantly, he explained their weaknesses. They rely on those chemical signals for complex coordination. When they can't use them, they get confused, disorganized. And they're not used to resistance. In their entire history, they've never had prey fight back effectively. Dr. Ward, who had been listening intently, spoke up. "The compound we used was just a prototype. With what you've told us, we can make it much more effective." "How soon?" Miller asked. "A few days, maybe less," she replied. "But we'll need to produce it in much larger quantities." Miller turned to the maps spread across the table. "Their command structures are worldwide now. We'll need to coordinate attacks on all of them simultaneously." "The people are already fighting back," said Colonel Reyes, representing what remained of the Mexican military. "Not just soldiers, ordinary citizens too. They're using guerrilla tactics, hitting the Ravagers and then disappearing." Miller nodded. "We need to arm them with Dr. Ward's compound, and we need to start adapting Ravager technology to use against them." Jackson leaned forward. "Their weapons can be operated by humans. I watched them use them. The design is strange, but not impossible to figure out." A plan began to take shape, a global counterattack that would hit the Ravagers where they were most vulnerable. Meanwhile, Supreme Hunter Grell was facing the wrath of the Hivemind. The failure at his facility had been noticed. "You have allowed prey to infiltrate your command center," the collective voice accused. "You have failed to maintain control." Grell lowered his head in submission. "These humans are unlike any prey we have encountered before. They adapt quickly. They learn our weaknesses." "Excuses," the Hivemind hissed. "If you cannot control this world, we will send the Devourer to complete the harvest." Grell's entire body tensed. The Devourer was the Ravager's ultimate weapon, used only when a world proved exceptionally difficult to harvest. It was massive, powerful, and utterly merciless. "Give me more time," Grell pleaded. "I will crush their resistance." "You have 3 cycles," the Hivemind decreed. "After that, the Devourer comes." Across Earth, humans were beginning to fight back with increasing effectiveness. Dr. Ward's compound was being manufactured in secret facilities and distributed to resistance fighters worldwide. Scientists and engineers worked day and night to understand and adapt Ravager technology. In what had once been a car factory in Detroit, Jackson watched as workers retooled assembly lines to produce weapons based on Ravager designs. "Will they work?" he asked the lead engineer, a woman named Lisa who had once designed racing cars. She nodded, her face smudged with grease. "We've tested the prototypes. They're not as powerful as the originals, but they'll hurt those monsters. Similar scenes were playing out around the world. Humanity was doing what it had always done in the face of overwhelming threats, adapting, innovating, refusing to give up. Miller coordinated it all from the underground command center. Communication between resistance groups was difficult with the Ravagers controlling most satellite and transmission systems, but they managed using old technologies. Radio, Morse code, even human messengers when necessary. The latest reports show Ravager confusion is spreading, reported a communications officer. Dr. Ward's compound is working. They're having trouble coordinating their forces. Miller allowed himself a small smile. Good. Tell all groups to prepare for Phase 2. Phase 2 was the direct assault on Ravager processing facilities. It was risky, but necessary. As long as those facilities operated, humans would continue to be harvested. The attack on Grell's Rocky Mountain facility was led by Jackson himself. A force of 300 fighters, a mix of military personnel and civilians who had learned to fight, approached under cover of darkness. They carried both human and adapted Ravager weapons. Remember, Jackson told them before they moved out. They're strong and fast, but they're confused. They can't coordinate like they used to. Hit them hard, and don't give them time to regroup. The battle was fierce. Ravagers fought with natural ferocity, their claws and teeth as dangerous as their advanced weapons. But the humans fought with something the Ravagers couldn't understand: desperate courage, the will to protect their world and each other. Lisa's adapted weapons proved effective, tearing through Ravager armor. Dr. Ward's compound, now in its third and most potent version, was deployed throughout the facility, causing chaos in the Ravager ranks. Jackson fought his way through the facility, heading for the central command room, where he knew Grell would be. He had a score to settle with the Supreme Hunter. When he finally broke through to the command center, he found Grell waiting, holding a weapon that hummed with strange energy. "You," the Ravager growled. "The prey that fights back." Jackson raised his own weapon, a modified Ravager rifle. "I told you we weren't prey." Grell fired, the energy beam narrowly missing Jackson as he dove for cover. The battle between them was brutal, each landing blows that would have killed a lesser opponent. Finally, Jackson got the opening he needed. As Grell prepared to fire again, Jackson threw a grenade containing the latest version of Dr. Ward's compound directly at the Ravager's feet. It exploded in a cloud of chemicals that engulfed Grell. The effect was immediate. The Supreme Hunter staggered, dropping his weapon as the compound overloaded his sensory system. Jackson didn't hesitate. He fired 3 shots directly into Grell's chest. As the Supreme Hunter fell, Jackson activated his radio. Command center secured. Facility leader is down. Similar reports began coming in from around the world. The coordinated attack had worked better than anyone had dared hope. Ravager facilities were falling, their forces in disarray without their chemical communication system. But even as humanity celebrated these victories, the Hivemind made its decision. The 3 cycles had not yet passed, but the situation was deteriorating too quickly. "Send the Devourer," the collective consciousness commanded. "This world requires special attention." In deep space, a massive ship, larger than any that had come before, changed course and accelerated toward Earth. Inside was the most terrifying weapon in the Ravager arsenal, a creature bred for millennia to be the perfect destroyer of worlds. As Miller received reports of the victories around the globe, a scientist from the Astronomical Division rushed in with alarming news. "Captain, we've detected something massive approaching Earth. It's bigger than anything we've seen before." Miller looked at the data, his momentary elation fading. "Get me Dr. Ward and Sergeant Jackson. The real battle is just beginning." Humanity had won significant victories, turning the tide against the Ravagers. But the ultimate test was still to come. The massive view screen in the command center showed an object moving toward Earth. It dwarfed all previous Ravager ships, appearing on radar as a dark mass larger than a small city. The Devourer, Jackson said quietly. Grell mentioned it before he died. It's their ultimate weapon, sent only when a world proves too difficult to harvest normally. Captain Miller studied the projected path. 3 days until it reaches Earth. That's all the time we have. For the first time since the invasion began, representatives from every surviving government gathered in one place, the underground command center that had become humanity's last hope. Military leaders, scientists, and civilian authorities all faced the same grim reality. Despite their recent victories, Earth now faced an even greater threat. "What exactly is this devourer?" asked the Brazilian president, her face lined with exhaustion. Dr. Ward pulled up images taken from long-range telescopes. "Based on what we can see and what Surgeon Jackson learned, it's both a ship and a creature. The Ravagers bred it specifically for consuming difficult worlds. It can absorb and process entire ecosystems. How do we stop something like that?" The question hung in the air, heavy with desperation. Miller stepped forward. "We have 3 days to prepare, 3 days to unite all our resources, all our knowledge, all our strength. Humanity has never faced a greater threat, but we've never been more ready to fight back." His words sparked a flurry of activity. Scientists pooled their research, military leaders coordinated their forces, and ordinary people around the world prepared for the final battle. Dr. Ward and Dr. Bell worked frantically in their lab, trying to develop a weapon that could affect the devourer. "The compound won't work on it," Anna said, frustration evident in her voice. "Its biology is different from the regular Ravagers, more integrated with its technology, more resistant to outside influence." Marcus stared at the genetic data they had compiled. "What if we don't try to confuse it? What if we try to change it instead?" Anna looked up, a new idea forming. A retrovirus. Something that could rewrite its genetic code. "Exactly," Marcus nodded excitedly. "We turn its own biology against it." As the scientists worked on their desperate plan, Jackson approached Miller with a proposal of his own. "We need to get inside that thing," he said without preamble. "A small team, directly onto the devourer." Miller frowned. "That's suicide, Sergeant." "Probably," Jackson agreed. "But if Dr. Ward and Dr. Bell develop this biological weapon, someone has to deliver it to the heart of that monster. Better to hit it before it fully reaches Earth." Miller knew Jackson was right. They needed a multi-layered approach, a global defense to keep the devourer occupied while a strike team attempted to destroy it from within. "I'll need volunteers," Jackson said. "People who understand they probably won't come back." He didn't have to look far. His own squad immediately stepped forward, along with other soldiers and pilots who had fought the Ravagers from the beginning. Meanwhile, humanity prepared its defenses. The adapted Ravager weapons were distributed worldwide. Every functional aircraft, from fighter jets to crop dusters, was prepared for the battle. Even civilian vehicles were modified to carry weapons or supplies. In what had once been Central Park in New York, now a staging area for the Eastern Defense Force, an old man helped load medical supplies onto a truck. "Shouldn't you be in the shelters, sir?" asked a young soldier. The old man shook his head. "I've lived 87 years on this planet. I'll be damned if I hide while others fight for it." Similar scenes played out across the globe. Humanity stood together as never before, unified by the need to survive. With just 12 hours before the devourer reached Earth, Dr. Ward and Dr. Bell completed their work. "It's ready," Anna announced, holding up a container of cloudy liquid, a retrovirus designed to target the devourer's specific genetic structure and rewrite key portions of its DNA. "Will it kill it?" Miller asked. "If it works correctly, it will do more than kill it," Marcus explained. "It will turn its own biological processes against it, essentially causing it to self-destruct from within." The substance was loaded onto the small, modified spacecraft that would carry Jackson and his team. The plan was simple but dangerous. Approach the devourer before it reached Earth's atmosphere, find a way inside, and deploy the retrovirus at its biological core. As they prepared for launch, Miller addressed the strike team. "What you're doing goes beyond courage," he said solemnly. "It's the kind of sacrifice that will be remembered as long as humans exist to tell the story." Jackson nodded, his face showing grim determination. "Just make sure there are humans left to tell it, Captain. Give that thing hell from the ground while we hit it from inside." The launch was timed precisely. As the Devourer entered the outer edges of Earth's orbit, Jackson's ship accelerated toward it, using adapted Ravager technology to avoid detection. The massive creature ship filled their viewports as they approached, a nightmare of organic technology, pulsing with strange energies. Finding an entry point wasn't difficult. The Devourer had multiple intake valves designed to absorb matter from planets it harvested. "Hold on," Jackson told his team as they flew directly into one of these openings. "This is where it gets interesting." Inside, the Devourer was a maze of biological corridors and technological components, all working together like organs in a body. The team moved quickly, following the energy flows toward what they hoped was the central core. They encountered resistance, specialized defender cells within the Devourer that attacked anything foreign. The fighting was intense, and 2 team members fell before they reached the core chamber. Meanwhile, on Earth, the battle had begun. The Devourer extended massive tendrils toward the planet, beginning its harvesting process. Earth's combined forces attacked these tendrils with everything they had: adapted Ravager weapons, conventional explosives, even nuclear devices in the upper atmosphere. Dr. Ward monitored the battle from the command center, her eyes fixed on the readings from Jackson's team. "They've reached the core," she reported. "They're deploying the retrovirus now." In the heart of the Devourer, Jackson placed the container at what appeared to be the central node, a pulsing, organic mass that controlled the entire organism. He activated the release mechanism and turned to his remaining team members. "Time to go," he ordered, though he knew their chances of escape were slim. As they fought their way back toward their ship, the retrovirus began its work, spreading through the Devourer's systems and rewriting its genetic code. The massive creature ship began to shudder, its tendrils withdrawing from Earth as internal systems failed. Jackson and only 3 of his original team made it back to their ship. As they flew clear of the Devourer, they watched it begin to collapse in on itself, its own biological processes turned against it. "It's working," Jackson radioed to Earth. "The monster is dying." The Devourer's death throes were visible from Earth, a spectacular light show in the upper atmosphere as the massive organism that had consumed countless worlds was itself consumed from within. When it was over, when the last traces of the Devourer had burned up in Earth's atmosphere, a strange silence fell over the command center. Then someone began to clap. Others joined in. Soon, the room was filled with cheers and tears of relief. Jackson's ship, damaged but functional, made its way back to Earth. They were given a hero's welcome, but the true celebration was happening worldwide. Humanity had faced extinction and had not only survived but triumphed. In the aftermath, as Earth began to rebuild, a message was sent to the stars, carried by modified Ravager technology, to reach across the vast distances of space. It was addressed to any other predator species that might be watching. The message was simple: Earth is not hunting ground. Humans are not prey. We are the apex predators of this galaxy. Come as friends, or not at all. Across the universe, other hunting species received this message with confusion, then understanding, and finally, fear. For the first time in cosmic history, the predators had become the prey, and the galaxy would never be the same again.